32 teams in 32 days. Today, the Arizona Cardinals. Welcome to a series where we're deep diving on every NFL team's offseason from the very beginning, from the head coaches being hired all the way to present day with preseason happening. Here's a list of videos that we're going to be dropping for 32 straight days, from August 1st to September 1st. I encourage you guys to hit that subscribe button so you can stay notified when we drop each video on their respective date. To kick off the deep dive of the 2025 Arizona Cardinals, we look at the coaching staff led by Jonathan Gannon. A couple seasons ago, he left Philadelphia along with Shane Steichen to be head coaches of their respective teams. Going to his third year, he is 12-22 during his tenure. Not the best record, however, if you look at it in an improvement standpoint, he's improving. 4-13 in 2023, and then last year he was 8-9. So this year they're hoping that the Cardinals can finally have a winning season, which we'll get to record projections, what we expect at the end of the video. Offensively, they're also improving, 19th in 2023 and then 11th just last season. And then with Marvin Harrison's growth, who's not to say that they can't be a top 10 offense in the NFL this season. Defensively, they're still trying to find their footing. Nick Rallis, who followed Jonathan Gannon from Philadelphia, hasn't had the best outing defensively, has been ranked in the 20s around the league as far as yards given up defensively. They need to make major changes on defense, which they did. The theme this offseason and the theme of this video is going to be defense. That takes us to our free agency adds and losses. That front seven got a major boost. With the signing, the highlight signing of the offseason for the Cardinals, it was Josh Sweat, which you could argue, coming from the defending Super Bowl champions, he could have been Super Bowl MVP. He caused so much havoc in that game against the Chiefs. Dalvin Tomlinson is also another big free agent signing. He's going to be that big nose tackle. Akeem Davis-Gaither added depth at linebacker, actually a starter. And in depth at linebacker is Michael Walker. And then Calais Campbell comes in temporarily. They signed him. It was a late signing. He returns to the Arizona Cardinals, a veteran. Up until Walter Nolan may return, he may be ready week one. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But as of right now, in a 3-4 defense, Calais Campbell, we are going to list him as the starter. And compared to the losses, I would say the adds outweigh the losses. They lost some defenders. Dennis Gardick was a part of the Cardinals defense last year. Kaiser White, Julian Aquara. That's cool, but they're all replaceable names, and the names that they replaced them with are going to be starting in a big boost for that front seven. They only got better in the NFL draft, starting with round 1, pick 16, with Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. Now, I will say this. Currently, he is dealing with a calf injury, and Jonathan Gannon has said he's about to miss some time. There is no timetable for him right now. He is currently on the PUP list, which is physically unable to perform. Now, by that cut deadline, the roster deadline after the preseason ends, if he is not activated from that list by then he will miss the first 4 games of the season. But as we mentioned, Calais Campbell was that signing to kind of replace Walter Nolan for the time being. Then that second round pick, I think a lot of people are saying is a big steal. If you watched Michigan play or you're a college football fan, you know the impact that Will Johnson has had on that defense. He was one of, if not the best cornerback prospect in that draft class, and to get 2 first-rounders in the first 2 rounds, huge deal for the Cardinals. However, he was red flagged. That's why he fell all the way to the second round, not because of character issues, but because of injury issues. His knee, some teams have said that it's not just, I'm going to miss the first half of the season and then be fine, better than ever. It's a longevity issue that could affect his career. Whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen. However, while you still have him with his youth, just coming off a big season with Michigan, use him while you can. We expect him to be the projected starter on the outside. Moving down the list with the draft picks, Jordan Birch, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke. There is a common theme here. They are all defensive players with the exception of Hayden Connor. Like we said, defense is the biggest theme for the Cardinals this offseason. Biggest theme for this video. They feel like that their offense is already there. They have the quarterback. They have the running backs, plural. We'll talk about that in a bit. They have the superstar wide receiver in Marvin Harrison, who's going to continue to extend. They have the solid tight end in Trey McBride. They just needed to fix that front seven, add in an extra cherry on top with Will Johnson if his knee is not an issue. The Cardinals approach this offseason beautifully. Looking at projected starters for offense, starting with quarterbacks, Jacoby Brissett is going to be the projected QB2 in this offense. He was added in free agency. James Conner is the RB1. However, Trey Benson, we expect in 2025 to work into this offense a little bit more. Jonathan Gannon on February 25th said that he views Benson as a starting running back. says that he believes both Benson and Conner are starting backs. And then on July 31st, James Conner himself said that it's more of a split this year, more of a 1A, 1B type situation. And in training camp so far, it's been James Conner, who we'd still expect to get the bulk of the carries, be the starter. Trey Benson getting some run, and then Amari DeMercado is working in on passing down. So use that information however you want, but we do expect more of a 1A. James Conner still getting about 200 plus carries this year, and then Trey Benson is going to get a little bit more run. Wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think a lot of people had high expectations for him last year. I don't want to say unrealistic expectations because he's capable of doing a lot, being the best wide receiver prospect since Julio Jones or Jamar Chase or whoever. 62 receptions for 885 yards and 8 touchdowns. In my books, I believe that's a really good season. I think a lot of people were just expecting a Brian Thomas level season that BTJ had with the Jaguars. It's just so hard for an offense that was committed to the run. They're going to be committed this year. They were 11th in the league last year because of the rushing attack, so nothing's going to tell us that they're going to go away from that. Plus, when you have a 140-plus target guy in Trey McBride, what's left for Marvin Harrison? We do expect to step up this season, so we'll get into that when we talk about projected stats. But the wide receiver 2 in that offense, it is Michael Wilson. Zay Jones is that backup on the outside for both of them, and then in the slot, it is Greg Dortch. Trey McBride is going to be the starting tight end. Hasn't gotten a lot of touchdowns in his career, but still a very reliable player. That offensive line led by Paris Johnson and Jonah Williams as their bookends. Evan Brown and Isaiah Adams as their guards. Now, Will Hernandez, he reunited with the Cardinals just a few days ago. I have Isaiah Adams as the starter because, one, I think Hernandez is dealing with an injury, and then two, there was a reason why the Cardinals did not choose to re-sign their starting guard from last year, Hernandez, because they have a lot of faith in their third-round pick from a year ago in Isaiah Adams. So they believe in the future and the youth, and Adams will get that start. Moving on to the projected starters for defense, we expect this to be a 3-4 defense. Calais Campbell, like we mentioned, is a defensive end in a 3-4 defense. That's how he's been utilized throughout his career. Walter Nolan, when he's healthy, he might be taking that starting spot, might be a rotational piece. We'll see, but Dalvin Tomlinson is going to be that up front nose tackle, big guy in the middle. Moving on to linebackers, Josh Sweat, we expect to be that right outside linebacker, rushing the quarterback. Okay, so let me first take a moment to talk about 3-4 defenses, because a few days ago, I came out with a Saints video talking about how we expect them to run a 3-4, and I had Chase Young listed as an outside linebacker, and I got a few comments saying, oh, he's not a linebacker, he's a defensive end. So in a base 3-4, outside linebacker is more times than not going to be rushing the quarterback than they are playing coverage or a traditional middle linebacker type role. That means you could, in certain packages, have your hands in the dirt as a defensive end, be a rotational D end, or be standing up and rushing the quarterback that way. Chase Young has experience doing both. Josh Sweat has experience doing both, and that's how Jonathan Gannon is going to utilize him. On the opposite side, we expect that same guy to be Zaven Collins. And then in the middle, their free agent signing Akeem Davis-Gaither from the Cincinnati Bengals, and then Mack Wilson Sr. Is going to be in the middle. And then the secondary, Max Melton and Will Johnson, the rookie, we expect to be the starting corners, Jalen Thompson and Budda Baker at safety. Nothing really to talk about there, except second on the depth chart behind Budda Baker is my guy, Joey Blount, baby. Let's go. Working his way up. One of the better special teamers in the league, in my opinion. Moving on to special teams, Matt Prater and Matt Pilardi walked in free agency. Chad Ryland and Blake Gillikin are going to be the new special teamers. And for Ryland, it's been pretty tough, up and down in his career. In 2023, it was 64% of his field goals that he converted with the Patriots. I'm surprised that played all 17 games, to be honest with you. But last year, he converted 87.5% of his field goals, 28 out of 32. So he's a solid piece. The Cardinals trust him. Looks like he turned his career around. And then the projected stats with the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. For Kyler Murray, this is on par for a typical Kyler Murray season. 23-11 is his touchdown to interception ratio. I believe actually on par is more like 21-12 is his TD to interception ratio, but I just bumped up the numbers just a bit, hoping that Trey McBride can score a little bit more and Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be more of an asset on that team. But when you consider passing yards and rushing yards, about 4,400, 4,500 yards total is right on par for Kyler Murray. Then the running backs, like I mentioned, not just one, but a starting running back in James Conner and then a 1B in Trey Benson. Both of them are going to get their run. So 1,094 yards rushing was the numbers that he put up. James Conner did last year with 8 touchdowns, 236 attempts. I don't expect that this year. That was in 15 games, essentially, because I don't count that last game against the Rams. 225 rushing attempts throughout 17 games is what I expect for James Conner. So taking a little bit of a dip in production so that he can pave the way for Trey Benson, the young up-and-comer sophomore, to make a way with 117 rushing attempts, both averaging 4.7 yards per carry. Conner is going to be the favorite in the passing game. Then the wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., a step up from the 116 targets that he had last season. We expect 130 targets. Get fed the ball a little bit more, 1,049 yards receiving, so he'll crack 1,000 yards, and then 9 receiving touchdowns. If you're expecting something like 1,300 yards receiving, it might be very tough to do, like I said, in an offense that heavily favors the run. You also want to favor Trey McBride. He's utilized heavily in that offense, but cracking 1,000 yards and scoring 9 touchdowns. Michael Wilson, 73 targets. And then Greg Dortch in that slot is going to get 51 targets. Trey McBride, heavily targeted, but doesn't score a lot of touchdowns like we mentioned. Only 4 receiving touchdowns, but 111 receptions, 1,100 yards receiving on 146 targets. So that is our projected stats for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, to wrap up the video, we have record projections. I don't like to just give one record and say anything outside of that is completely wrong. I like to give a window because there's a lot of variables in the NFL. A floor and a ceiling. How many wins will the Cardinals have minimum and how many maximum? And the floor that I have for them, minimum, is 6-11. The maximum, the ceiling, is 11-6 with a playoff appearance and a division win, which I'll talk about that in just a second. But what I expect for them is 9-8. Gannon is slowly improving year after year. 4-13, 8-9, 9-8. I would honestly say 10-7 is not out of reach. And for the Cardinals on that schedule, the Panthers, the 49ers, I mean, all division games pretty much, the Colts, the Cowboys, these games could go back and forth, the Falcons even. That's where that window comes in between 6 wins and 11 wins. But I do expect them to be a winning team just because of the improvements that they made on defense. But that 11-6 ceiling, winning the division, the tiebreaker, if those teams were to go 11-6, all of them, the way I mapped out the schedule when I was making this video, it ended up being that the Cardinals got the tiebreaker. So it's a possibility that they could win the division if they go 11-6. But 9-8 is where I project them, and making the wild card with just 9 wins is tough to do in a competitive NFC. But if you agree or disagree, leave a comment down below. I love to talk with you guys about football, not just with record projections, but stat projections. Anything I mentioned in this video, leave a comment down below. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date when we come out with more videos during this 32 deep dive series. Tomorrow's video, the Cincinnati Bengals. Can Joe Burrow and that offense keep it rolling, and can that defense improve so they have a shot at making the postseason? With all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you tomorrow.